All right, all right. Let's talk about NWSL weekend action. We've got some previews to go through. We've got some picks to make. We've got some more news to talk about, but we want to weave it into some of these previews. So let's start with Orlando Pride versus OL Reign. Lisa, we've got another team returning to regular season action, similar to Portland. All Reign are current Women's Cup champions, defeating Racing Louisville in the Women's Cup tournament that took place last weekend. And now they are going to face a pretty hot Orlando Pride team, extending their undefeated streak to 7. Who are you picking in this one?
Yes, this is the first time Orlando Pride and OL Reign are playing each other in this regular season. For Orlando, they're 7 games undefeated right now under Seb Hines, who has just really done a fantastic job with this team. They're so fun to watch Orlando play right now. And we saw the last loss that Orlando faced was against a Portland side that was very good and a very tough team. And now we've seen this Orlando team really turn things around with the personnel that they have. We're seeing a lot of youth under Seb Hines getting a lot of minutes, and he's really proud of what they've been able to do. But on the other side, OL Reign, as you mentioned, coming off the Women's Cup championship, this is a team that wants to win the Shield. They want to be number 1 in the standings. This is an OL Reign side that wants to do everything in their power to keep grinding away and be an incredible team this season. And they have the firepower to do that. That's some of the most fun thing to look at, because OL Reign is coming off of a 4-1 domination in regular season play over Gotham FC. So between these two sides, it's going to be in Orlando at Exploria Stadium. I see this one being a huge battle. I don't think Orlando is going to make it easy for OL Reign at all, and vice versa. We look at the goalkeeper battle between these two with Fallon Tullis-Joyce and Erin McLeod, 2 incredible goalkeepers that have played every minute for their clubs, respectively, this season. They've got a lot on the line, a lot of pressure on both of them. I see it as a narrow OL Reign win, though. Very, very narrow, like 1-0 in this one. I just think it's going to come down to the midfield between these two sides. A very experienced OL Reign midfield and a very young Orlando Pride midfield to see what they can do with Viviana Villacorta, who's just been tremendous for Orlando. But I mean, look at what OL Reign has. They've got Megan Rapinoe up top. They've got Rose Lavelle. They've got Jess Fishlock. They've got Quinn. It's going to be in the midfield for sure.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm with you 100%. I love what we've been watching out of this, this iteration. Seb Hines, Orlando Pride, what we've been seeing from them. And the thing about streaks in this league is they ultimately come to an end. And I am curious if this is going to be the game in which that happens. You do have an OL Reign side that's returning to NWSL action, but it's not like they took weeks off or anything like that. They were active in the Women's Cup. They won. If anything, they might be coming back into NWSL action a bit stronger, because a lot of their bench, many of their depth players saw a lot of time over the course of the 2 matches that took place in the Women's Cup. And if anything, that's something that you want for your team as you prepare to sort of make this trek down the final third of the season and then sort of go through this playoff push. And I'm with you. My eyes are all on the midfield and the middle third for this team. And I look at what's available for that defensive line in Orlando Pride, and I take a look at somebody like, I don't know, Rose Lavelle, who exists, and for OL Reign. And I think looking at a player like Quinn, especially someone who's able to go ahead and kind of set tempo and dictate things a little bit, is gonna make it a difficult day for Orlando Pride. But on the other side of that, even though I'm going with OL Reign in this one, I'm really looking forward to seeing Allie Watt get some time against her old team. I think these types of games are always, exciting, and they bring a level of excitement for neutrals to sort of watch and see. So I'm going to go with OL Reign, but I wouldn't mind at least seeing an Allie Watt goal in this one. We'll have to come back and see if we're correct.
And that's not a stretch. She subs on for Orlando in the last match against Gotham and knocks a goal. So great trade by Orlando. The battle and the energy between Watt and this Reign side are going to be there.
I'm going to say that it's going to be maybe even like a narrow one, maybe like a 2-1, even putting a scoreline on it. Look, this whole rain side we've seen them attack in waves and waves and waves and deliver crosses and deliver shots and like building up those stats. And like some of these score lines end up like 1-0, despite that. But I have to imagine that at this point in the season, as you're sort of finalizing things and sort of having, things like cohesion kind of come settle into place, I would imagine that maybe this is a game in which they give that back line a bit of a headache. So we'll see. We'll see if we're both correct in this one. Is when we do the recap. Let's chat a little bit about Racing Louisville FC versus Chicago Red Stars. Chicago Red Stars trying to hang on to this sixth place. Have gone 2 weeks now with back-to-back losses, haven't necessarily dropped out over the last 2 weeks of that upper half of the table, that they have not really been able to do themselves any favors in terms of providing themselves any cushion within that spot. It's a very, very tight table in the standings right now. And you've got a Racing side coming off of the Women's Cup. Listen, we saw Wang Xuan go ahead and get open up her goal scoring account with Racing. Nadia Nadim getting on the board. Again, another team that it's not like they took some time off over this course of last weekend. But I'm curious as to who's going to come out on top of this one, Lisa, because we've got two teams in very different positions than they were in the first half of this year. We're talking Challenge Cup and even in the earlier match between these two teams. Now, near the end of August, with teams in the midst of a playoff push, I'm curious if this one has the makings of a draw, but I don't know if I'm going that way.
Okay, so you're just dangling the carrot in front of us if it's a draw or not. I'm not going to draw. I have Racing Louisville winning this one. It's the first match on Saturday. Orlando Rain is the only match on Friday, and this one kicks off 3 matches in a row for Saturday evening, 7:30 Eastern, and it's the second time these two teams have played. And as you just mentioned, both Chicago and Louisville in incredibly different spots right now than they were even 2 weeks ago when you look at this. So 2-1, Chicago won the last time, but now they're playing Louisville is playing at home at Lynn Family Stadium. Racing Louisville is 3 games undefeated. Meanwhile, Chicago, they've hit a bit of a skid. They're coming off 2 back-to-back losses. They've lost 4 of their last 5 and dropped 3 points in all of those. And that's just not great. They're struggling right now, Chicago. And I see where you're coming up with a draw in this one because Chicago's the team that can turn it on, and they've got a midfield that can do incredible things. Listener and goal. They have a lot of the great pieces. But when I look at Racing Louisville and what they've been able to do, as you just mentioned, Wang Xuan, Jess McDonald, Nadia Nadim, Savannah DeMello, Gemma Bonner in the back line, like Katie Lund, but literally the list goes on. I'm just rattling off the roster, it feels like at this point. But the talent that Racing Louisville has and what they've been able to do together has been truly phenomenal. This is a team that works so well together, moving the ball, moving off the ball, going quickly on transition, sending crosses in, offset pieces. They can punish teams in a variety of ways. And that's why I'm going to stick with Racing Louisville. Did I convince you to pick a winner, or are you sticking with your draw?
No, I just think there's too much familiarity here. I just really think that the form of both of these two teams right now doesn't really sway me one way or the other, quite frankly. I really do see Racing Louisville just unfortunately kind of stuck in a pattern right now, one that they're kind of unable to get out. I think they've got a little bit of an eye on 2023. I don't know if you bring in a player like Xuan and anticipate, okay, yes, this is the answer. We're going to go on this incredible, groundbreaking, historic run and push to the playoffs. I think maybe there's a little bit of an eye on 2023 and trying to make sure you kind of close out your season with a bit of momentum, which they have done. I mean, and if you're sort of a lower bottom half table team and you're still going out there and you're playing competitively and you're going out there and you're competing against other teams that might be playing with a different sense of urgency, I don't think that's anything to sort of turn your nose down at. I think that the fact that you've got players that look like they are, excited to play with each other and for each other, I think bodes well for them down the line, especially when they've got the mix of veteran players and kind of young core that they have right now. So I'm excited to see the continued development of somebody like a Jalen Howe, somebody like a Savannah DeMello. But on the other side for Chicago, they're like very thin at their roster. The transfer window has come and gone, and Chicago has, quite frankly, not made any indication that they are going to be adding anything to their team, which is unfortunate because they are coming off of a game where they might be without somebody like a Tatum Milazzo. We're recording this before an availability report has dropped, so there's some unknowns there about where her health is at. There's some unknowns there about Aaron Wright, who was out with their previous game due to an ankle injury. I don't know. Does somebody come back from an ankle injury in 1 week? We'll find out when the availability report drops, but they are incredibly thin in their defensive back position right now. And if all signs are pointing to pushing somebody back like a Bianca St. George's, I think you're losing something in your attack. If you're the Chicago Red Stars, quite frankly, she's been very, very good for them at wing back there. So I would imagine that I'm sticking for a draw in this one, but I hope we at least get some goals. I hope it's not going to be a 0-0 or maybe at least we get a 1-1. So we'll see. You're going Racing. I'm going Chicago. Let's chat a little bit about Houston Dash, Washington Spirit. Some news before we really dive into this one. We've already discussed some updates with the dismissal of Chris Ward. It's going to be the first game that they, go ahead on the road without their head coach. Emily Sonnet was recently placed on season-ending injury list with a foot injury. So there are some adjustments that they made ahead of this one, Lisa.
Yeah, this is pretty big news. We knew the injury was maybe a little bit more serious than has been let on because Emily Sonnet was left off the USWNT roster that came out earlier this week. But the Washington Spirit has signed Marissa Shiva and Audrey Harding to full-time contracts through the end of the season. They were both national team replacement players that saw significant time during the CONCACAF W Championship when the Spirit were missing like 7 or 8 players. So 2 players that came in, and Shiva and Harding, that definitely made a difference, made an impact, and now they get a contract for the end of the year. So perhaps we'll see them this weekend. Kelly O'Hara also dealing with a bit of an injury at some point. So we saw her actually being taken off the USWNT roster after she was named to it. A bit of change happening there as Kansas City defender Haley Mace was put back on the USWNT roster, a player that has not been on the U.S. senior national team for a while now, working her way back in. So that's another little bit of news that surrounds Washington with Kelly O'Hara and Emily Sonnet, but in Kansas City a little bit with Haley Mace.
I know. I mean, I don't know. I think in this one, Lisa, when you're looking at the Dash with the Spirit, I know the Dash are coming off of a week that saw them kind of rise and fall a little bit in the standings, but still, quite frankly, keeping pace for that shield and gunning first place potentially. I think when you're looking at these two, after having a little bit of time to kind of regroup and all things considered on the Spirit side of things, I don't know if this Spirit team strikes lightning twice. Quite frankly, we saw this franchise go through a pretty rocky 2021 season. Saw a lot of negative headlines around the franchise and the front office and ownership specifically. And the team just sort of rallied amongst one another and went on that incredible run. I don't know if they do that again in this year, and I don't really know, quite frankly, if they've got enough time to do that. They're one of the teams that have fewer games remaining on their schedules. So I'm excited to see Angela Salem get the chance to lead this team into a match against Houston Dash. But again, I just don't know if that's enough. I think if anything, Houston Dash perhaps are looking at this one and saying, let's try to bounce back, after dropping, after a missed opportunity. Perhaps they could have, gotten that win over San Diego and created some of that cushion, whether it was even amongst, perhaps some of the tiebreakers where, things could shake down to. So I'm going with the Dash in this one. I want to see them, pick up the win against Washington Spirit. How about you?
I like that you're picking Houston in this one. I think I don't know. I'm like debating right now between a draw and a Houston win.
Yeah, I was like, this one could be a draw.
I'm putting all my cards on the table as
Yeah.
I say this one. I mean, everything you just said about Houston rings true. They're coming off of that 3-1 loss to San Diego, where they probably could have won this one. They are a team that can score goals, and we've seen that. There's 15 goals for Houston in their last 6 games. So when they score, they do it in a abundance of ways. And you look at someone like Ebony Salmon that has just been fantastic. She just got a call up to the English national team, which is huge for her. So that makes me think she'll have an extra little spark under her, knowing that she got the call up and now everyone knows it because it's been made public. And then on the Washington side, it's the first game for them without Chris Ward. Angela Salem will most likely be leading the team. Does that change anything for this Washington side? Perhaps, honestly, perhaps it does. But then they're playing without Emily Sonnet. They're playing without Kelly O'Hara. Those are 2 big-time veteran players on this squad that can help turn things around and help get things going. And I just think it's a little bit too late for Washington Spirit. I don't want to go with the draw in this one. I like to only pick one draw, so I'm going to save it. I'm going to go with Houston. I'll double up with you on this one. I think Ebony Salmon will bounce back. This team defensively will bounce back with Naughton, Prysock, Campbell. They'll tighten up against this Washington side that moves quick in transition, but Houston, they'll be ready for it because they just saw it against San Diego, how teams can be quick. Put the pressure on, go in transition, look to be a little bit more direct, which is what Washington might try to do. And Houston will be ready for it this time.
I'm here with you. We're both going Houston. Let's talk a little bit about Portland Thorns versus San Diego Wave. We got a battle between the first place team and the second place team in the standings. 3 teams level with 28 points right now in the standings. This one might have some real indications down the stretch. When you're looking at these 2 teams matching up against each other, they're the last match to take place on Saturday. There's going to be a little bit of NWSL After Dark action. Who are you picking in this one, Lisa?
It is NWSL After Dark for sure. The last time Portland and San Diego played, it was a 2-2 draw. We saw in that match Taylor Korniak for the Wave. She got a brace. And Portland's coming off a midweek game in which they just lost to North Carolina. But they sat some players. Reen Wilkinson had a bit of rotation. Sophia Smith and Becky Sauerbrunn playing about 60 minutes. No Sam Coffey, no Christine Sinclair, no Bella Bigsby. So those players will be fresh for this match. Meanwhile, San Diego Wave, they have Jaden Shaw back after she was away with the U.S. youth team. They're coming off a big 3-1 win over Houston. This match between these 2 sides, like this is the one that I'm like, I just don't know about this team. I love it though. It'll be in Portland, in Providence. Honestly, my gut is saying San Diego. I think they're going to get back on the winning side of it, but I'm going to go with Portland because it's at home. They're coming off of a midweek loss that they're probably pissed about over North Carolina. They want to stay at the top of the standings, and they've got to get back on the winning side of things. They just broke their streak of win games or undefeated games, and they want to get on the other side of it, close this season out, staying at number 1. So I'm sticking with Portland. I'm going with it.
You know what? I hate to do it, but I'm feeling Portland in this one as well. I know San Diego is coming off of a really big win, right? You're talking about a 3-team race right now, really a 4 to 5 team race for the Shield, but you've got 3 teams who are level on points right now. And you've got San Diego coming out on top against that Houston Dash side. But, this was a win that sort of came off of some inconsistent results, right? Coming off of 2 back-to-back losses prior to that win, a draw sprinkled within their last 4 or 5 games. So I think that result was a big one for them. But I think there's something about this Portland Thorn side that's going to present some different challenges for them. I loved the first iteration of Sophia Smith versus Naomi Girma. I'm very excited to see it again in this one. And I'm hopeful that we do get some goals, that we do get some exciting soccer. But I do wonder if something like the midweek game will come back and bite Portland in this one, if the long travel from East Coast to West Coast will come back and bite them. But I do think that we could see Sophia Smith have another really strong game. I felt like she just was, inches or millimeters from potentially getting a goal in that game against the Courage. This was the other game for me that I was struggling. I was like, well, maybe I'll choose this one as my draw. But I think Portland has shown that they can do well in terms of their player rotation, that they've got players to step up when they need them to step up. And they're no strangers to having to, pick up results coming off of midweek matches. So I'm going to go with the Thorns in this one as well. I think that they're going to be hungry for this game in particular. So we'll see. We're both correct in that one. Let's chat a little bit about the doubleheader that's going to take place on Sunday. Got New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC versus Angel City FC. Gotham looking for a win. They have been winless for their last 7 games. And you've got Angel City that have still yet to make the leap into that upper half of the table, despite picking up some results. So they've got 2 draws and a win in their last 3 matches. I have to imagine, Lisa, that they're looking at this one and saying, okay, we have got to take care of business here. But I don't know if it's going to be so easy for this Angel City side. Who do you got in this one?
I have Angel City winning this one. They're traveling to Red Bull Arena, so it's a home match for Gotham. It's the second meeting between these two sides, and Gotham beat Angel City the first time, 1-0. It was a goal from Ifeoma, and that was it. I think we've seen an evolution and a turn of page from Angel City, where they want to push to be in that top playoff spot, which is something that is doable for this Angel City side. But it starts this weekend, getting 3 points against Gotham. Gotham haven't won in 6 games. They're on a downward tick, coming off of a 2-1 loss to Orlando. They got a goal in that match, which is good, but it's not good enough, right? And against an Angel City side, that may be enough to just get one, because we've seen Angel City fall to a lot of draws that way. But ultimately, I think that Los Angeles, the city of angels, and Angel City, they're going to pull through on this one and ultimately get the win on the East Coast, and come up big with 3 points at the end of this one.
Yeah, I hear you. I think, Hugh Menzies has been tasked with being the interim head coach and trying to perhaps, at the very least, just sort of navigate this team through the remainder of their season. Gotham has a number of games under remaining in their regular season, but I don't know if there's enough here for them to go on some ridiculous run. They've made a couple of moves to sort of close out this international window. We talked about them picking up Victoria Pickett from Kansas City Current. They went ahead and they also signed an additional defender, Brazilian international Bruinha. So I'm curious as to how they see these players fitting in to the current roster, to the current team, to the current formation, and what they're trying to present with the remainder of games they have left in this season. I would love to see a really good, strong, competitive match against Gotham. Perhaps the injection of new players can help do that. But this was, again, another one of those games where I'm like, is this the one that I want to give my draw to? We saw a very narrow win from Gotham over Angel City, but that was at a much different time and in a much different place of the season. I think you got an Angel City side that is hungry and thirsty to sort of break back in, quite frankly, into that upper half of the table and try to continue their playoff push. So I'm going to go with Angel City in this one, but right. I don't imagine that it's going to be this high goal scoring affair. I think it might be narrow. I think we might get a 1-0 or maybe even a 2-1, because something else that we've seen from Angel City is they've been conceding constantly very late in games. So we'll see if they can hang on to a 1-0 or a 2-1. I'm going Angel City in this one.
I don't know if I see a 2-0. There's something about Gotham. They get
goals. No. I said 1-0 or 2-1.
Okay, well, 1-0. There you go.
Yeah, well, Angel City has been, they've been conceding late, and Gotham has been scoring late. Yeah. So there's the makings of that, so that's what I'm like. That's what also made me go a little bit back and forth as if I wanted to give an actual result or a draw. So I'm going to go Angel City, narrow scoreline. Let's talk about this last one, Lisa. It's Kansas City Current versus North Carolina Courage. Quick turnaround. if you're the North Carolina team in this one, and Kansas City Current, the hosts, trying to build on their undefeated streak as well. Again, we chatted a little bit about Haley Mace getting called into the national team as a replacement for Kelly O'Hara. So this is a very exciting time, I think, for this KC Current team. It looks like they're having a lot of fun, quite frankly, as they're continuing their playoff push. And I don't know. I think maybe if we were previewing a game like this one, Lisa, a couple weeks ago, maybe we'd feel differently. Yeah. But North Carolina Courage finally built themselves a little streak, 2 wins, and we've got Kansas City Current, who had to come from behind on a penalty to go ahead and get a draw against Angel City. Who do you got in this one?
I have a draw between these two.
You saved it for this one.
I saved my draw for this match between Kansas City and North Carolina because this 11-game undefeated streak for Kansas City, it's not going to end now. It's just not. They're a team that is too hot. They're playing with confidence. They're having so much fun doing it. But this game at home, they're going up against a North Carolina team that's coming off midweek action. That 3-1 win over Portland from being at home for North Carolina gave them a lot of confidence coming into it. And we have to remember the last time these two sides played, because it was 4-3. It was a back and forth match with 7 different goal scorers in this one. North Carolina goes up. Kansas City equalizes. Then Dabinia gets one for North Carolina. Then Lola Bonta equalizes before half. Then North Carolina, and then Kansas City immediately responds. It was so back and forth. It was so exciting. I think we're going to see that much excitement again in this one. But the last time Kansas City closed out with 2 back-to-back at the end of that match to take the win. And I think it'll just end in a draw between these two sides. And they'll split points to end the weekend of NWSL matches.
Yeah, I hear you. Listen, there were a ton of games this weekend where I was like, there's a few of these that I think could be pegged for a draw. And I thought that the previous match between these two teams was headed toward a draw then, but it turns out it was just a wild goal scoring affair with 7 goals between them. But I think Kansas City Current is going to be a little bit motivated by that, quite frankly. I think they're going to want to finish strong. I think we heard from Lola Bonta in that post game against Angel City specifically, they were not happy with their last couple performances, that they didn't want to concede, as many goals as they did against North Carolina Courage, and then having to come from behind against this Angel City side by way of penalty kicks. So I think that this is going to be a game where we still get to continue to see some of the really exciting attack that we've seen from Kansas City Current, but perhaps an opportunity to sort of flex their defensive muscles as well. And I think they're going to try to pull off the win in this one. And I think that the midweek action might come back and bite the Courage in this one as well. So I'm going to actually go with the result, and I'm going to go with Kansas City Current in this one, especially because there are those unknowns against somebody like a Diana Ordonez. If she's available, I think, hey, you're probably on par for your draw. But if she's not available, I think it's going to be a long day at the office on the pitch. But we'll see. We'll be back to recap all of these games and see how our picks shook out in this one. Thanks everybody for joining us